Hey guys, welcome to the Max Invest YouTube channel. In today's video, we're going to be doing a yearly recap of the Graph cryptocurrency. Now, the Graph is one of the fundamentally strongest cryptocurrencies, and I do believe that it's actually pretty undervalued. So I want to talk about what the Graph's growth has been like this year on a fundamental level, and where I can actually see the Graph going in the next couple of years. Of course, if you enjoy the video, remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Follow me on Twitter, join the Discord, and remember, nothing in this video is financial advice. The first thing that I briefly want to discuss is that the Graph has had very poor price performance in the last year. As we can see, the Graph immediately opened at roughly 30 cents, and right now the Graph is sitting at roughly 60 cents. Of course, a 2x in a year is pretty good. However, after it initially opening at 30 cents, it immediately shot up to roughly 80 cents, and if you look at it from that price point, it's down on the year. Moreover, the Graph proceeded to go on a big rally up to $2.40, however, is substantially down from that. If you compare the Graph's chart to the majority of other cryptocurrencies, it's down significantly against almost all cryptocurrencies, so it hasn't done this well this year. Of course, I didn't buy the Graph at the beginning of the year, and there were a few specific reasons for that. Now, the first reason that I didn't actually want to buy the Graph is because they had a very heavy inflation schedule. As we can see, if we look at the market cap of the Graph when it was $2.40, its market cap is the same as it is right now. And the reason for this is because inflation on the Graph network has been absolutely insane. However, I actually do think the Graph made a very good decision to do this. The reason I think that this was actually a very good idea is because of all of the GRT that was paid out in inflation was paid out to indexes, curators, and delegators. What this meant is it meant more people wanted to help out the Graph, more people started building on top of the Graph, and overall it resulted in some insane network growth. So this year for the Graph can actually be summarized as some very poor price performance, however some insane fundamental growth. Another thing to point out is that the inflation is almost all over. The Graph had a huge emission schedule for the first 3 to 12 months, however after 12 months it starts to slow down dramatically, and I'm hoping that with my investment thesis on the Graph, it's going to start performing very well in price. I do believe that it's had one of the best years for fundamentals, however the price has lagged behind and hopefully they'll catch up eventually. So now what I want to talk about is the Graph's fundamentals specifically, and I'm going to be talking about a yearly recap done by the Graph network on Twitter. As we can see, the Graph has only been live for 1 year. However, since that time, the Graph has 150 indexes, 2,300 curators, and 8,000 plus delegators. So it has a lot of different participants in it, and it's great to see some strong growth. Now, I do want to do a quick recap of what the Graph network is so no one is behind. Essentially, all the Graph does is it indexes all of Ethereum's historical data. This means that different applications can draw on this data and use it in their application. Every time this piece of data is used, a query fee is paid to an indexer. So what happens is the indexers will make the subgraphs. They'll essentially put together all of this data and then different applications can come to use it. For example, Uniswap could come to use some of the Graph's data, and every time someone looks at Uniswap, a fee will be paid to an indexer. Now, a curator is essentially a person who has a little bit less tech experience, and what a curator will do is they'll signal which subgraphs need to be built out, and the indexers will do the building from there. And all a delegator is someone who is basically staking their Graph and giving their GRT tokens off to indexers. So the Graph has a pretty good network right now. It's growing at a rapid pace and it is thriving, which is good to see. The next thing that we need to take a look at is the amount of developers that are querying different subgraphs. So as we already know, a subgraph is a piece of data that's put together by the indexers, and different applications will start using it, such as Uniswap, Synthetics, and Lyra Finance. As we can see, the amount of developers that are actually using the Graph has gone up 14% month over month. Of course, when you look at it year over year, this is 550% growth, and this shows some insane usage of the graph network right now. As we can see, in July they launched a subgraph studio where they helped people develop and use subgraphs, and this shows that it kicked off even more growth on the network, which is great to see. The next statistic that we're given is the amount of subgraphs being deployed on the graph network. As we already know, subgraphs are just big chunks of data that are indexed together by indexes, and they're then used by applications. We can see that this has grown at 282% year over year, and there are now 31,000 subgraphs, which is an absolutely massive amount of subgraphs, and this is another good metric to look out for. Now, of course, in the graph network, indexers need to actually index a subgraph for a specific category, and it wouldn't be a surprise that the vast majority of subgraphs are made for decentralized finance. Of course, DeFi is the biggest use case on crypto right now. If you want to use insurance, if you want to lend and loan money, or if you just want to simply yield farm and try and make as much money as you can, DeFi is probably the place to go right now. And of course, the amount of value locked in decentralized finance is over $100 billion on the Ethereum network alone. So it's an absolutely massive use case, and it's no surprise that the graph is mainly DeFi right now. However, we can see that 10% of the graph is NFTs, and there's a long line of other things that the graph are indexing, such as DAOs, gaming, interoperability, and infrastructure. So there's definitely a lot of other things to be excited for, and in the future I would expect this to be a lot less DeFi and a lot more other things as their use cases get built out over time. Of course, one of the most important statistics on the graph is the average daily query volume. Essentially, every time someone looks at an application using a subgraph, this is a query, and a small fee is paid to the person who created that subgraph. For example, this morning I went on to Uniswap and I looked at Uniswap. By simply looking at Uniswap, Uniswap is paying a query fee to an indexer. Of course, this query fee is unbelievably small, however, we will look at the amount of query fees quite soon. As we can see, there are tons and tons of different queries on the graph. We can see that the graph has roughly 1.8 billion queries per day. That's right, 1.8 billion. Of course, if you compare this to something like Google, Google would probably be having trillions of queries every day. However, I would expect the graph to start growing rapidly. We can see that the graph's queries have grown by 569% year over year, which is very, very big. Now, one important thing to distinguish is the graph has two different services. The graph has a hosted service, and this is where the graphs store the subgraphs for individuals. Of course, what this means is that it means the subgraphs are a bit more centralized. However, the graph also have the fully decentralized graph network, where individuals must store their own subgraphs. Of course, the graph network only came out very, very recently, and it's still just kicking off. As we can see, the vast majority of queries are on the hosted service. The hosted service has about 1.7 billion queries, whereas the graph network has about 25 million queries. In the future, I would like to see the graph network start gaining substantially and actually overtake the hosted service eventually. However, I do think this will probably take a couple of years to occur. And the reason for this is because the hosted service is a bit of a centralization vector, and it would be good to see the graph network grow relative to the hosted service. Anyway, the next thing that I do want to take a look at is the total lifetime queries. Of course, all this is doing is it's just adding up the previous queries. However, it is amazing to see that the graph has had 370 billion query fees in total, an absolutely massive number. Now, a better perspective on this is to look at the total query fees for the graph. Every single time there is every single time someone views a subgraph, they will pay a small fee. As we can see, there have been 370 billion queries. However, there have been 265,000 GRT paid in query fees. At today's prices, 265,000 GRT is roughly $200,000. So what this does show is that it shows a very small amount of GRT tokens are paid every single time there is a query. Of course, in the future, I do expect that this will be millions of GRT paid in query fees. However, we will need to wait and see. As the graph gets bigger and bigger, its fundamental value will continue to grow. And if we look at the graph right now, in the exact present day, it's roughly fairly valued, I would say. However, if we actually extend out into the future and we look at the graph's growth rates, it is definitely undervalued. If the graph can continue growing at 500% every single year, I would expect the graph network to actually grow substantially and the graph's token price to follow it. So, I am very bullish on this statistic and I am definitely excited for the future. Anyway, this essentially brings us to the end of the graph's yearly recap. I found these statistics very interesting and it helped me build out my thesis on the graph. Of course, I'm not buying any more GRT right now and I am actually looking for a reversal on the charts before I buy some. I'm not selling any of my current GRT stack, I'm just looking for a bit of a reversal and then I'll start buying some more, as I do believe the graph is very fundamentally strong. Anyway, if you enjoyed the video, remember to like and subscribe to the channel, and thanks for watching the video.